Sabko Mera Namaskar or Hardik Habinandan. I hope you can understand me. And since we're celebrating International Mother Language Day, let me add just a few words in my own mother tongue, which happens to be French. Bienvenue à tous, et c'est bien sûr un grand plaisir de vous voir et de vous accueillir aujourd'hui. That's all. I'm just welcoming you in my own language. And it is really an honor to be here with you today and to have so many eminent speakers. And I really want to start by taking this opportunity to thank Dr. Ramesh Gore, who has played a pivotal role in bringing this panel together and together with his team and of course the whole of IGNCA organizing this event today. Just a few facts, because we've already heard a few, but I think it's important to remember some of the facts surrounding International Mother Language Day. Every 2 weeks around the world, a language disappears, taking with it an entire cultural and intellectual heritage. At least 43% of the estimated 6,000 languages spoken around the world are endangered today. Only a few hundred languages have genuinely been given a place in education systems and in the public domain. And imagine that less than 100 languages are used in the digital world today. Less than 100 languages. I think this statistic quite clearly is a wake-up call for all of us. And one of the reasons why we celebrate together every year International Mother Language Day. Indigenous, or as we often call it in India, tribal languages are disappearing slowly due to several reasons, and I think it's already been alluded to a while earlier. And one, in general, around the world, one would wonder what happens when a language dies. Well, when a community loses its unique vision, its history and culture, the community also loses its local resources, stories surrounding the community. Most devastatingly, some people lose their mother tongue altogether. And I hope that you will agree with me that it is actually tragic and the word is not strong enough. Because I think with the loss of their mother tongue, people can find themselves unable to speak the first language they learned to describe the world in. And it also has a catastrophic impact on culture. Needless to say, the extinction of each minority language all over the world, everywhere, becomes an irreplaceable loss. And not only to the people whose ancestral tongue it is, but also to all of us, because we lose a precious part of humanity's collective cultural heritage. And this is this realization that led to the idea of celebrating International Mother Language Day, which was, and I really must note this, the initiative of Bangladesh. Bangladesh was the country which brought this to the attention of the UN. It was approved back in 1999 at the UNESCO General Conference and then became endorsed by the UN. It has been observed now for more than 20 years. And it's actually gaining in importance, I'd like to think, every year. UNESCO has been promoting and preserving indigenous languages, of course, together with the governments and all the countries where we work over many years. I want to mention here that for those of you who may not be aware, that we have created a world atlas for endangered languages, which shows languages and their status on an interactive world map. I think it's appropriate as we celebrate in particular this year the digital aspects of this related to the day. And we believe that it plays an important role in disseminating information on endangered languages, leading hopefully to their preservation and revitalization. This is an online atlas to save dying and vulnerable languages. Later today, I want to mention also that we're going to launch a very important report that has been developed as a result of collaboration between the Indira Gandhi National Center for the Arts, IGNCA, and UNESCO. I think it presents a very important contribution to the identification and documentation of India's tribal and lesser-known languages. This is a report that provides all the necessary update on India's language data and profile in the World Atlas and beyond. This is very important and necessary work. These inventories play an important part, and that will help India bring to the attention of the world, as the Secretary said earlier, the diversity, the amazing diversity of India, including through its languages. Last year, as we kick-started also, and it's starting this year, the International Decade of Indigenous Languages. It is going to run from 2022 to 2032, and this is an effort led by UNESCO together with our colleagues from the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs, as well as the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights and a number of other UN system entities. This is, there again, an effort to preserve and promote indigenous languages around the world. We've already had a number of consultations around the world with governments and others, and we have realized at UNESCO that the outputs of our efforts within the framework of the decade must probably focus on three priorities, which I will outline very, very briefly. The first one is to ensure inclusive and equitable education for indigenous peoples. This can be achieved in particular through the integration of indigenous languages into school curricula, capacity enhancement of teachers and other educators, and assistance to local government agencies in the recognition and operationalization of indigenous languages. I know that this is an issue of concern in India, and I know that the Ministry of Education, together I'm sure with the Ministry of Culture, is looking at this issue. Again, worldwide, we believe that we should place equal stress on the development of language technologies and digital resources for indigenous languages to empower indigenous communities with digital skills. Remember the figure that I gave earlier, which shows that only 100 languages are present in the online world, and obviously that has a big impact when all of us every day and throughout the country here in India are using digital technology, even if it's just through the phone. And then the third aspect that I think we have come to realize is that indigenous languages should be the drivers of indigenous people's cultural participation. It's also very, very important. The cultural heritage system needs to be inclusive everywhere around the world and upgraded to ensure the documentation of all forms of languages and the integration of indigenous languages into national culture roadmaps. That's why the work of institutions like IGNCA is so important. And there's no doubt that if we pay attention to these issues, technology and innovation can have the potential to address some of the greatest challenges that we face today, in particular in education. Remember that we're just barely coming out of the COVID-19 crisis, which has been extremely difficult, again, all over the world for schools. We've seen school closures all over the world, and many countries were able to employ technology-based solutions to maintain continuity of learning. There was a huge effort, and we certainly at UNESCO recognize the effort that has been done here in India in this particular area. We did have, by the way, a recent UNESCO, UNICEF, and World Bank survey on the national education responses to COVID-19 closures, and it shows that actually there was a huge progress in terms of the use of technology. 96% of high-income countries provided remote learning through online platforms for at least one education level, and all other countries also did something similar. And again, I want to recognize that the incredible efforts that have been done here in India. Having said that, here, like everywhere else, all of us are aware that the pandemic actually exacerbated social, economic, and digital inequalities. Governments everywhere moved swiftly to find alternative solutions, but at least 1/3 of the world's students were not able to access remote learning, which obviously has put a whole generation at a risk of a learning catastrophe. Despite the myriad challenges, the learning crisis has been a wake-up call to make education systems more resilient, inclusive, flexible, and sustainable. And we must continue this effort. Furthermore, I would like to add that as we reimagine, rethink, transform education pedagogies and technology for sustainable development in multiple languages, we must also keep gender at its core. For instance, the school is an important setting for socialization, and the entire education process can definitely enhance and or compromise girls' experience of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics studies, and we should not forget that. A lot of focus must be laid on developing also innovative teaching tools and building the capacities of teachers as we do so. That's also one of the lessons of the pandemic. Teachers tried their very best to adapt, but they need more tools, they need more help. This issue was very much the focus of our 2021 State of the Education report for India, entitled No Teachers, No Class, which argued for the important central role of teachers in the learning process. It also emphasized the use of a multilingual approach in the education system, since it helps to reach the underreached by providing access to education in the different local languages. Always very, very important. I want to say here in India's context that the new education policy, well, not so new now, it's almost a couple of years old now, is an excellent progressive science and evidence-based policy, which is truly holistic. It is truly transformative. I have had many opportunities to say so in the past, but I want to say today again in the context of International Mother Language Day, and UNESCO certainly believes that holistic education can only be achieved if access to education is also met with access to quality learning in multiple languages. Very important. Let me give you I realize I'm a little bit long, but it's an important opportunity to give perhaps one or two examples. I really want to give the example here of someone who won the Global Teacher Prize just over a year ago. His name is Ranjit Singh Disale, and he this is a Global Teacher Prize which is supported by UNESCO, and he represents a wonderful example of how education can and must, in fact, join hand with technology to move forward. This gentleman recognized in his classroom the need for home language instruction, and he leveraged technology to create QR codes, quick response codes. And he embedded them into the Marathi textbooks, content in Canada, which is the children's mother tongue of where he's actually teaching. This included audio and video of stories and poems, and also assignments for the children. In order to do this, he learned the local language that the children were more familiar with than he was, and improved his own digital literacy skills through a series of courses that he undertook, so that he would be able to reach out better to the children. I'm sure you will agree that it's a rare and very significant example of what can be done in this field. He also redesigned textbooks to enable girl children affected by various issues in the village to continue to access education, even when everybody was forced to stay at home. So he was recognized by his state, and that's how he went on afterwards to receive this Global Teachers Award. I believe he's now an education advisor at the World Bank, and of course continuing his work on the ground. And I really want to commend him and give this as only one example of what can be done. Anyway, on this occasion, I just want to say that quite clearly we must come together to address the urgent need to preserve endangered indigenous languages, not only for the benefit of their speakers, but also for the sake of all of us, considering the unique contributions of each language that each language makes to our world's rich cultural diversity. There is so much here in India, and it can definitely be an example for the world. So with these words, I wish you good luck for the continuation of your deliberations. Thank you.